Anyhow, joining us to talk about last night's poll, but also a particular scrap he's ended up in, and to give us a bit of an oversight of the polling world. And I've just talked about those New York Times polls at the moment, the Siena polls that have come through, and their accuracy. New Zealand's leading pollster, I'd have to say. Very lucky to have him on the show. David Farrar joins us. David, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on.
Great to be here on, Michael.
Listen, mate, last night's poll, first of all, in some ways surprises, because, again, negative media coverage for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. No change in how New Zealand thinks about the government.
And that's not surprising, despite the media coverage, because people made a decision at the last election to change the government. Now, they don't have a blank slate, but people are waiting to see how they do, and they're giving them a fair chance. You know, most of the stuff the government's been attacked on is stuff they promised to do. It's not like 1990 where there's heaps of broken promises, etc. In fact, the funniest thing at the moment is, people are pressuring the Prime Minister to ditch the Act Treaty Principles Bill, saying just because it's in your coalition agreement doesn't mean you have to do it. When you all know, actually, that's exactly what coalition agreement means.
Yes, it's rather amusing, isn't it? It means that you don't in actual fact have to say that you're going to do what you're going to do. It's sort of the Labour way of looking at the world. Hey, listen, mate, you're also in a bit of a scrap at the moment. I read about it. You've talked about it on your website, Kiwi blog. You've withdrawn, I think, from the Research Association of New Zealand. Is that right?
That's right. I've been a member since I set up Career in 2004. This is the professional body for research. It's quantitative, qualitative, political polling's a subset of that. I'd like to think I've been a pretty, as you say, high-profile member. I used to be on the executive. I was the lead author in the political polling code, which we did after the 2011 election, because there were some polling companies then that just came out with shocking results. Nowhere close to them. And I was actually a guest speaker at last year's AGM. But and this is unusual perhaps just in the polling industry, but complaints processes get weaponised now, and effectively, from my view, that's what's happened against me. I've gone from 18 years with no complaints to, I'm not sure if I get a complaint monthly or weekly, but it's somewhere in between.
And why do people complain about you, though? I mean, just quietly. Is it because they don't like the results, so they're shooting the messenger? Or is it because they don't like your politics, because you are associated, you have been, with the National Party?
I think it's a mixture of they don't like my politics and or they don't like my clients. Some of my clients are on the centre-right, not all of them. I pointed out on my blog. I've polled for around 300 different organisations or individuals. I've actually polled for 10 different political parties, ranging the entire spectrum. I've polled for Green and Alliance candidates at local body elections. So, my job, regardless of my personal views, is to provide a good professional service. But I think where we've got to today is people have weaponised that partly against me, partly against my clients. The one that led to me finally resigning was when I got told they'd upheld a complaint on the very politically sensitive issue of hormone blockers in under 18-year-olds. I wrote what I thought was a very fair question, but people complained and said that because we mentioned the UK banning them, this was biasing the results because we didn't mention countries that hadn't banned them, where, of course, the entire point was to find out for the client whether knowledge of what happened in the UK affects people's views in New Zealand. So almost getting to a point where if you actually want to be able to produce useful stuff for your client, you can't do so because the industry body will hear complaints, and if they disagree with you on question wording, take disciplinary action against you.
That's extraordinary. I mean, I come to you and I'm your client and I say, I want the answer to this question. And you say to me, you could probably frame your question a bit better or something like that, but at the end of the day, you're paying the money, you're contracting the service, and I'll run a professional poll for you. And then somebody else who doesn't like either the question or the solution or me complains to your organisation about you. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that is right. And what my job as a pollster is, clients often come with questions that they hope will be supportive to their viewpoint. And my job is to push back. always am pushing back and saying, look, we could ask this question, but I don't think the media will cover it because it looks a bit leading.
Yeah.
You try and persuade ministers, MPs, the public, they can see through that. And you end up in negotiation, and they've got right, though, to still say, in the end, I want to test this line of argument. They might not even want to publish it. Where I've got professional duty is to make sure it's not misrepresented. So they must publish the whole question. They can't just publish what they claim is the answer without the question. They can't misrepresent the question, etc. But if they want a particular question, and I've warned them, okay, look, it might not be the best. Yes, they've got a right to ask that. But I think one of the problems, I don't think it's just politics, Michael, but as I said, political polling is a subset of all research. I think you've got some people in the industry who work in academia, government departments, etc., where they've almost got this, we all know there is only one way to ask a question, etc., and anything that's different to that, you can't do. And this, simply isn't the reality of political polling. As an example, I was very pro-euthanasia, but the anti-euthanasia people, despite my views, hired me, as did the pro-euthanasia people, and they wanted to test what phrases do people respond best to: assisted suicide, assisted dying, euthanasia, or assisted killing, because then they'll use that phrase on purpose. So this is all part of just being able to tell clients, look, this is the sort of arguments or the sort of phrasing that will convince people to your cause.
Yep. David, I can't hear you. I can't hear David. That's the second guest that's dropped out this morning, Josh, just quietly, because Tony dropped out for a wee while too, so if you can get him back, that would be useful. Listen, the other thing that I'm going to ask David is, what was the question? And whether or not the question or the complaint process was weaponised because somebody had the temerity to question accepted woke orthodoxy regards puberty blockers and trans issues, which to me, I've got to be honest with you, does my head in. David, have I got you back?
Yes, I am back. It must have been the mountains in Queenstown where I've just arrived. That must be interfering.
Oh, you're in Queenstown. Oh, okay.
I am.
Oh, well, listen, it snowed over the last couple of days, so you should have plenty of the white stuff around. It's really good for you. Good on you. You're just down the road from me. Listen, mate, the question, though, to do was that drawn the complaint in the centre, etc., it was to do with puberty blockers and the trans issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is it so volatile now that you can't even ask questions without somebody getting upset?
Oh, absolutely. And to take that, as you may know, I'm also a blogger. When J.K. Rowling first came out with her views on it, and I don't agree with everything, but I thought there were some issues being raised there, I wrote a blog post. But this may upset some people, I'll refine it. 2.25 years later, Michael, I finally published a very, very long blog post on what I saw as all the issues around gender and biological sex, etc. Now, my average blog post takes me half an hour to write. This took me 2.25 years because it's such a divisive issue where one side sees this as totally threatening their identity, but another side sees it as totally threatening their biological sex, especially women. That is very difficult to have a conversation or do research on that. And if you do, yes, people try to say, we can't have a conversation on this. We can't ask the public what they want. You have to be on one side or the other.